Hi there friends, it's Miss M back with another video for you. This is Be the Guide Part 2, and today we're going to talk about vocalizations. Now, as a preschool speech language pathologist, one of my favorite things is working on what I call like vocal play. Sometimes I'll have parents or teachers tell me, oh, there's some new sounds coming in. They're starting to do a little bit more like the ooh or ga ga ga, or some of those reduplicated syllables, that kind of babbling like vocalization. But there's a lot you can hear a child maybe starting to play with those vocalizations a little bit more. They're trying different pitches, different intonations, different rhythms. And so I'm going to talk about how to not only kind of build up for that and to get that vocal play going for either your speech client or your little ones at home. But I'm going to talk about how to foster it, how to keep it going when we're, when you're in the moment, when you're in a play session, or, at meal times and things like that. So I'm going to talk about a few key points. This is kind of brief because it's just to give you a little bit more inspiration as you go on in those activities with your little ones. But some really great things to do to promote this vocal play is imitation of movement. We start there. We start with imitation because, as you know, as we imitate and make this kind of back and forth game out of things, that kind of sets a foundation for the reciprocal interaction during conversations. So start with movement, start with actions. We go put our arms up and arms down, arms out, arms in. Other things, we could do whole body movements, jumping and things like that. And then you can add sounds to that movement. So that makes it really easy. And also, you think a lot, I talk a lot about pairing gestures with our speech, which you see me doing all the time. I'm a huge talk with my hands person. And so when you pair that movement with those sounds, it adds another element of, understanding the game, so to speak, right? The activity, and another way to interpret things. So, if you just start by doing that action imitation, either you're imitating the child or they're imitating you, or back and forth, which is amazing. Then you add those movements. So maybe you're going, ooh, ooh, or you add some consonants in there, kind of like stop and go. So you could just be doing, like up, down, stop, go, and change your intonation and encourage the child to just follow those patterns. So maybe right? And then another fun thing about vocal play, I love writing goals that encourage a child to either imitate or produce environmental sounds or exclamations, right? Those are really fun. So if you think about going down a slide, that's a really great action to include vocalizations for. Can you guess what I'm going to say we do? Wee, right? And it's so it just matches that movement of going down the slide. Your voice is sliding when you do that. And it's a very easy consonant vowel combination for some of our little ones. Not always, but sometimes that's a really fun one. It's fun. You can feel the sliding in your vocal folds and your whole larynx, your voice box, right? So sometimes I tell parents, I'm like, oh, they're playing and it might feel good. It might be a new sensory experience. So why not encourage that? And these are all things that it's different for every child, but these are kinds of the things I think about when I'm like, yeah, maybe it feels good. And that's why they're doing more of it. And they're getting those, first sounds for their first words, and they're imitating us and they enjoy that, or they like the way it sounds. It's very pleasing to their ear. So let's keep it going and let's build on it. So those environmental sounds are really fun. And then with environmental sounds, you bring those into play. If you're playing with cars and you do the vroom for really fast, and you make the car move, and then if you each have a car, you're playing with it and you're encouraging that imitation. Maybe you have an ambulance toy and, you can do the siren, the wee-oo, which is a really fun one too. Trains, choo-choo, chugga, 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 choo-choo, animal noises. Amazing, right? So all of those kinds of ideas. Now there's plenty more. You're not bound to those ones that I just said, But those are a great place to start. And you, knowing your child or your student and what they prefer, start there. Follow their lead, start with what they prefer, and you're going to be golden. Another thing to think about when we're working on this vocal play, it's so awesome and so fun when they start imitating you. And as a speech pathologist, I know when that happens, when that imitation really starts and we're having those kind of back and forth moments, I really want to just keep them imitating me because I'm getting their attention. And I think that that's really exciting. You know, sometimes for my students that have more limited attention, the minute they start imitating me, I just want to keep being the one, keep being the leader. But we also want to remember in a communication setting, especially a successful communication setting, even between two adults, being a good listener is a really great skill, right? It actually is more motivating and keeps that communication going. So in this setting, or when you're thinking about vocal play, be a good listener. Make sure that you're giving, you know, I always talk about that 5-second pause. You're giving that time for the child to initiate a new sequence or a new sound, a new movement, anything like that. So just remember to be a good listener, because that will really, you know, I think of this in terms of, and I love seeing videos of, you know, really young children or infants that you can kind of hear that conversational like reciprocity, that conversational vocal play kind of going on with their parents. And that's the idea. We want to build those early social skills, those conversational skills with this, because it turns into a fun little back and forth, and that makes the engagement really fun. We don't want to push it. We don't want to, you know, just anticipate it right when we start doing a vocal play. That's why I started with imitation. You just want to start there and you want to follow your child's lead. But you want to make sure that you're building on that reciprocity. And one way to do that is, one, will be a good listener. Another way to do that is to make sure that you're imitating the child too, not just expecting them to imitate you. And if you've watched other videos on imitation that I've put out there, I always talk about imitate the child first. Do whatever they're doing. So if they're rolling a car back and forth, you know, you go up and you imitate with another car that activity. And then, you know, maybe they are making some little noises. So start by imitating their noises. I've talked a lot about the student. I was walking to speech one day and he was doing some vocal play with like an ooh, ooh sound. And so once I started imitating him repetitively and consistently, he kind of caught on that, oh, we're playing a little game. Every time I do this, Miss M, you do it. So then as he caught on, I started to change it. And then I started, you know, I initiated a new sound, but it didn't seem as motivating for him if I didn't start by following what he was doing, if that makes sense. So that's always a great place to start, right? You want to give that little piece of control over and let them know, hey, I'm listening to you. I'm engaging with you based on what you're doing, because I think it's really awesome and really cool. It's basically what that kind of means, right? And then, you know, finally, make sure you're giving positive feedback. You are, you know, reinforcing those great things that your child's doing. And when they're going, ooh, ooh, you know, you're, I love hearing your voice, or, you know, even just your positive affect and imitating them could be some positive reinforcement. Every child's different. I've noticed every child responds differently to positive feedback. Sometimes they don't like when I get super excited and say, I really like that. You know, they're like, okay, well, you didn't need to say that. Sometimes it's enough for me to just engage with them and make sure my affect, so they can read those facial cues, you know, or sometimes it works when you say, oh, you know, I like hearing your sounds, or things like that. So always, you know, have that ready to go. Those, you know, I'm gonna definitely give positive feedback. I'm gonna positively reinforce this, because this is what we want to see happen and we want it to continue.